didn't realize was how much politics there are that are limiting science. Because there's so much that we as scientists still want to do. Because I'm in research, I'm an undergrad doing research myself, and I know for me it's amazing that there's so many things that like we want to still learn and we want to still research, but there's all these laws and stuff that prohibit it, and so it's really cool that there's so many people out here who are trying to make it easier for us to further science and help people through science. So it's pretty cool.
Are there misconceptions about your field of science that the public has? Could you talk more specifically about what research you're involved in and how that affects with public policy?
Sure. Well, I am a psychology student. I kind of am focusing on more behavior and the brain, which behavior in and of itself is behaviorists they kind of get a bad rap even in psychology, but people generally don't like to. There's a lot of stigma surrounding psychology. Like people don't want to know too much about why we do the things we do and why we think the way we think. So that alone, just the cultural stigma surrounding it alone, make it hard. I've had people come up to me and they're like, psychology isn't a science, or psychology is ruining culture and morals and stuff like that. So I know for me, religion is a really big one that makes it hard for psychology to go forward. Not that religion is bad, but just that people can't seem to accept that religion and science don't need to commingle. They're two different things.
That's a really interesting thing, because we talked about that on our second episode of our podcast. About there's a group called the Secular Therapy Project, which is a consortium of therapists that agree to, they opt in and to be part of this list, and they agree to use scientific methods and not to use religion for a therapy situation.
Yeah.
So that's something that we covered. Do you, so you as someone that's interested in psychology, do you see what are some of those specific barriers? Are there is it more just that public perception that psychology and behavioral studies are a problem? Did I understand what you said correctly?
Yeah, I think yes. I can't think of any specific policies per se that limit it right now, but definitely the public perception plays a big role in everything you do. If you're doing a psychological study and you need to get participants, and half of your population that you want to sample doesn't believe in psychology or doesn't agree, you're going to have a skewed sample in and of itself. So I think perception and the way people view psychology plays a huge role in research.
Right. Do you have an opinion about the bill in the state legislature that has failed several years, but there's a bill to ban conversion therapy for minors in the Colorado State Legislature? I know that may not be exactly what you're doing, because this is more of the clinical side, but...
No, I was just talking to my friend Emily, and I didn't even realize that people still did that, that people still use conversion therapy at all. So I think that is disgusting and offensive, and weird, because we as psychologists don't view homosexuality as a disorder at all. So it's very old-fashioned, and I'm amazed that people are letting that continue, really.
Right. And that may lead to some of the criticisms of psychology in general, because folks now are looking at that and saying, okay, well, 50 years ago, if you allowed, the idea that homosexuality is a mental disorder to exist in the DSM, what have you done, with your methodology to change that? How would you respond to a criticism like that? Is there anything that has changed fundamentally to prevent bad ideas from coming into psychology and mental health?
I think that psychology is very empirical, and we follow the same scientific structure that any other science would follow. And because of that, because there's tons of peer review involved and very specific, clear procedures that we have to follow, it makes it so that it keeps us from having problems like that. But I mean, not to say that that doesn't happen, and that not to say that there are still kind of stupid, weird ideas out there and weird research. But I just think that I personally haven't come across anything that was like totally obscure or totally offensive in psychology. Everything is very scientifically based.